The princess behind the mask, the great halls of Varel Station were silent but full of eyes. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had gathered for the peace summit. There were humans, Miratari nobles, traders from the Belt colonies, and silent watchers from distant stars. Everyone was waiting. But they were not waiting for a speech. They were waiting for her, Princess Vialia. No one had seen her face. Ever. The story said she wore a silver mask made of starstone. It never left her face. Some said it hid terrible scars. Others believed it covered ancient power. But most feared the legend that anyone who saw her face either went mad or disappeared forever. Eli Torres, a human security officer, stood near the edge of the hall. He wasn't like the other guards who wore shiny armor and followed orders like machines. Eli watched everything, everyone. And right now his eyes were locked on the grand entrance. Suddenly, the music stopped. The heavy doors opened. She entered. Princess Vialia walked slowly, wearing long dark robes that shimmered like the night sky. The silver mask covered her face completely. Only her eyes showed, bright, sharp, and unreadable. The nobles bowed. The crowd lowered their heads. Even the galactic envoys paused in respect. But not Eli. He didn't bow. He didn't move. He watched, her like he was trying to see the truth under that mask. The summit began. Speeches filled the air. Promises of peace. Warnings of war. Long, empty words. But Princess Vialia didn't speak. She just sat, hands folded, silent and still. Until it happened. A sudden noise. A whistle. Then, boom. The floor shook. Smoke exploded. Near the podium. People screamed. Guards jumped into action. Blasters were drawn. A second blast hit the ceiling. Lights flickered. And in the chaos, someone rushed toward the princess with a hidden blade. Eli moved before anyone else. He jumped the barrier, tackled the attacker, and threw him to the ground. The blade dropped with a sharp clang. The guards swarmed the area. The attacker shouted something in an alien tongue before they dragged him away. Princess Vialia stood still, untouched, unharmed. Eli looked up at her, breathing hard. She looked down at him through the mask. Then something strange happened. She reached out her hand, just a simple gesture, a gloved hand offering help. Eli took it, and for a moment, the hall froze, not because of fear, but because she never touched anyone. The princess helped him to his feet. Their hands stayed together for one breath longer than needed. Then she turned away, walking back to her seat without a word. Eli was left standing there, confused and curious. Later, he was called into a private chamber by Miratari security. He expected anger, punishment, maybe even a quiet death for touching the princess. Instead, the room was empty, except for her. She stood by the window, her face still hidden, looking out at the stars. "You are not like the others," she said softly. Eli didn't know what to say. "I just did my job. Many men do their job with fear in their hearts. You did yours with courage, and no fear of me." "Should I be afraid of you?" he asked. She turned slightly. Her mask caught the moonlight. "The galaxy, believe so. I don't," Eli said simply, a long silence. Then she said, "Walk with me." He followed her down a long hallway lit by blue crystal lights. The guards stayed far behind. For the first time, it felt like she was alone. And lonely. "You wear that mask all the time?" Eli asked carefully. "Since I was 7. "Why?" "Because someone told a lie," she said, "and people believed it." She didn't say more, but she stopped in front of a sealed door. "This place is not safe," she said. "There will be another attempt, maybe more. Then let's get you out of here." She looked at him again. He could feel her eyes behind the mask, sharp, tired, searching. "You will protect me?" "Yes." "Even if it costs you everything?" Eli didn't blink. "Yes." For a moment, nothing moved. Then she opened the door and stepped into the shadows. "Follow me," she said. "We leave now." And without another word, The masked princess trusted someone for the first time in her life. She took his hand, and did not let go. The human who didn't flinch. The tunnels beneath Varel Station were narrow, damp, and forgotten. Ancient pipes lined the walls, dripping condensation into small puddles that echoed with every step. Eli moved carefully, his hand close to the blaster at his side. Ahead of him, Princess Violia walked in silence, her robes barely brushing the ground, her mask glowing faintly under the tunnel lights. She didn't look back, but she didn't walk fast either. It was as if she knew he'd follow without question. And he did. Eli had no idea where she was taking him. He only knew that. She had reached for him when the world above erupted in chaos. Her voice had been steady. Her grip had been strong, and something in her eyes, whatever part of them he could see, told him that trust did not come easy to her. But still, she had chosen him. "How long have you known?" Eli asked after a few minutes of silence. She paused mid-step. "Known? What?" "That someone was trying to kill you. Since before the summit was announced," she said calmly. "I agreed to come anyway." "Why?" She turned slowly. "Because fear is not the same as weakness. And the Miratari people, they've grown too used to hiding behind power." She started walking again, her words floating behind her like falling leaves. "Besides, I wanted to see how the galaxy would react when a masked princess walked into a room full of enemies and said nothing." "Some people wanted you dead," Eli said. "Some still do." They reached a steel door sealed with an old biometric pad. Valia removed a thin glove from her left hand, revealing pale skin etched with glowing lines. Delicate patterns like circuitry, or maybe something older. She placed her hand on the pad. The door hissed open. Inside was a small chamber, dusty, forgotten. But it held a console, dim lights, and a strange warmth in the air. She sat on a metal bench and gestured for Eli to sit across from her. For the first time, he noticed she looked tired, not physically but inside. "You want to know what's behind the mask?" she said. Eli didn't deny it. "I want to know what you're hiding from, not just your face." Valia stared at him. Her voice was quiet. "I was born to unite two enemies. My mother was Miratari, my father, something else. A species the Council erased from history." Eli leaned forward, suddenly alert. "You're part alien?" "I'm part Almerian," she said. They had no armies, no ships, only one gift, the ability to feel everything around them. Joy, pain, hope, fear. They called it heart-weaving. The Council feared it, so they destroyed them. Eli blinked. "And you inherited that?" "Yes. But my mother made me hide it. She gave me this mask and told me never to remove it. She said it would protect me from the galaxy." Eli nodded slowly. "And from yourself?" Valia looked down. Her hands trembled slightly. "When I was a child, I touched someone, just held their hand. They screamed. Not because they saw something horrible, but because they felt everything I felt, all my sorrow, all my memories. They couldn't handle it." She looked up again and her voice became steel. "So I stopped touching people. I stopped trusting them. The mask became my life." Eli said nothing for a long moment, then he spoke gently. "But you touched me. Back in the hall." "Why?" "Because you didn't flinch," she said. "And when I looked at you, I didn't see fear. I saw someone who wanted to understand." Eli took a slow breath. "I don't know everything about you, but I know what it feels like to be used and to be alone." The moment between them stretched like a wire. Then she stood. "We don't have long. Someone in the Miratari court betrayed me. They will come again. Then we need to leave Varel," Eli said. "Do you have a ship?" "No, but I know someone who owes me a favor." They exited the chamber and entered another tunnel. As they moved through the dark, a low hum vibrated the floor. A shadow passed overhead. Not just a patrol, something heavier. A gunship. Valia stopped. They've sealed the exits. Then we'll make our own, Eli said. They reached an old maintenance shaft. Eli climbed first, clearing the way. Above them was the outer wall of Varel Station. If they made it through, they could escape into the civilian zone, vanish in the crowds. But as they climbed, a strange sound echoed from below. Footsteps. Not one set. Many. They found us, Eli whispered. Valia didn't hesitate. She pulled something from beneath her robe, a small orb glowing with pale blue light. This will buy us a few seconds. What is it? A memory pulse. She dropped it. The explosion wasn't fire. It was silence. A wave of stillness swept through the shaft, freezing the sounds of pursuit. Eli felt his heart skip, as if time itself had paused. They burst through the hatch and into open space. The marketplace was chaotic, noisy, full of life. No one noticed the masked princess and the human running into the crowd. But somewhere deep below, a figure watched them through a surveillance feed. She trusts him, the voice growled. Then, we'll use him to destroy her. The war of truths and lies. The city planet of Kalar Prime spun slowly beneath a curtain of silver clouds. Its spires reached into the sky like spears, glowing with the constant light of commerce, politics, and secrets. No one looked twice at strangers here. That's what made it the perfect place to disappear, and the perfect place to be hunted. Eli and Valia moved through the lower levels, far beneath the wealthy towers and shining domes. Here, the lights flickered, the walls were stained, and the air smelled like rust and oil. But for the first time in days, they could walk without being watched, or so they thought. He'll meet us in District 4, Valia whispered, her voice barely rising above the hiss of old pipes. Who? Eli asked, scanning every alley, every shadow. His instincts never rested now. Someone who can get us off-world? Someone who can tell us the truth, she replied. His name is Soren. He was part of the Almerian resistance. He knew my father. Eli blinked. You've been hiding that part of your past this whole time. She nodded slowly. Because if the council finds out who I really am, they'll do what they did to my father. Erase me. They passed a flickering screen showing galactic news. Headlines scrolled fast in 10 languages. Masked princess survives assassination attempt. Miratari blame human extremists. Peace talks in danger. Princess missing. Reward posted. Eli stopped and looked at her. They think I took you. Valia stared at the screen. Behind the mask, her jaw tightened. Then let them believe it, she said. If everyone's chasing you, they won't be looking at who's really behind the attack. He gave a sharp breath of disbelief. You want me to be your decoy? You already are. They reached a dark, crumbling warehouse on the edge of the district. The air buzzed with quiet energy. Above them, tiny, drones zipped by, scanning for life signatures. Eli took her hand without thinking, guiding her through the shadows. She didn't pull away. Inside the warehouse was silence. Then a voice came from the shadows. You brought a human? A tall figure stepped forward, half his face replaced by shimmering biometal. One eye glowed red, but his voice was calm, tired. So this is what you've become, Valia, the girl who was supposed to change everything, hiding behind a mask and holding a human's hand. Hello, Soren, she said softly. Soren didn't bow. He didn't speak with respect. He just walked to a console and pressed a button. A hologram flickered to life. Do you know what this is? He asked Eli. The image showed an old council meeting. Soldiers, destruction, screaming voices. In the center, Vaelia's father, tall and proud, pleading for peace. This footage was buried, Soren said. Your council erased it. Said your father was a traitor. Said he tried to weaponize empathy. Valia stepped closer, her voice shaking. He never wanted war. No, Soren said. But the council did. They needed a reason to erase the Almerians, so they turned us into monsters. The hologram changed. Now it showed Valia, just a child, being fitted with the mask. Her mother watching silently, her eyes full of fear, not love. Eli clenched his fists. "You've been carrying this since you were a kid?" "I wasn't supposed to survive," she whispered. "The mask was meant to suppress my gift, not protect it." Soren turned. "And now you've brought her to me. What do you want, human?" Eli stepped forward. "We need proof. We need to show the galaxy who she is and what the council did." Soren studied him for a long time. Then he said, "There's one place left, an archive deep in the ruins of Lyrae 9. It's guarded by machines older than most empires. If anything survived, it's there." "Then we go," Valia said. "It's suicide," Soren warned. Eli looked at her. "We've faced worse," Soren smirked. "You sound like your father." They left the warehouse under cover of night. But what they didn't know was that every step had been tracked. Far above Kalar Prime, aboard a silent ship cloaked from every scanner, a figure watched the feed from a stolen drone. "They're heading to Lyrae 9, the voice said. "Prepare the hunters." A shadow moved behind him, a Miratari noble dressed in red. "Shall we capture the princess?" "No," the voice said coldly. "Kill the human. She'll come to us willingly then." As Eli and Valia boarded, an old transport hidden beneath the city, neither of them saw the mark burned onto the hull. 3 jagged lines, the symbol of the Silent Order. Assassins loyal to no empire, hired by the highest bidder. As the engines roared to life, Valia sat quietly, her fingers pressed to the mask. "What if we fail?" she asked softly. Eli looked at her. "Then we fall together. But not before the truth burns through every lie this galaxy is told." For the first time, she nodded without fear. "Then let it burn." The mask comes off Lyrae 9 was not a planet. It was a graveyard, once a thriving Almerian sanctuary. Now it was nothing but dust, jagged spires, and wind that screamed like it remembered every life taken from it. Long before the wars, Lyrae 9 held the knowledge of an entire species. Now, it held silence. Broken, buried silence. Eli stood at the base of a collapsed monolith, his boots crunching over shattered memory crystals. He turned slowly, scanning the horizon. A red sky loomed above, lit by twin dying suns. Sharp shadows crawled across the ground like claws reaching from the past. Valia didn't speak as she walked beside him. Her robes were stained from the travel, and her movements slower now. Less regal, more real. They had landed on the outskirts, guided by Soren's stolen coordinates. Their ship was hidden beneath the rocks, cloaked from satellites, but not from fate. They had reached the end of what could be prepared. Now they were walking into the unknown. "This was the Hall of Memories," Valia said finally, her voice thin against the wind. "My father brought me here once. He told me truth was not in what people said, but in what they left behind." Eli looked around. And what did they leave? She knelt down and brushed her fingers over a cracked data stone. Blue light pulsed beneath the surface, faint, but alive. Hope. They moved deeper into the ruins, descending spiral stairs that barely held their shape. Below, ancient machines slumbered. The air was colder here, heavier. Valia touched the wall and whispered words in Almerian, and the chamber opened. A wide, circular room lit by flickering lights came to life. In its center stood a pillar of light, a data core older than any human colony. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. "This is it," she said. Eli stepped closer. "Can it prove what the council did?" Valia nodded. "It contains every record the Almerians ever kept. Emotions, memories, entire lives encoded into crystal. But to unlock it, it needs someone who shares their blood." Her hand hovered over the pillar. She hesitated. "What's wrong?" Eli asked gently. "Once I do this," she whispered, "there is no hiding anymore. No mask. The whole galaxy will know who I am, and what I was meant to become." Eli stepped beside her. "Then let them see." The ones who matter will finally understand, and the ones who fear you will lose their power. Slowly, she placed her hand on the crystal. The room exploded with light. Images filled the air, memories of a world that breathed peace, felt love, embraced others without fear. The Almerians had lived not through conquest, but through connection. And then came the warships, the council, the betrayals, and finally a woman holding her child, Viola, pressing the mask to her face and saying, "Forgive me." The light faded. Eli turned to Viola. She was breathing hard, her hands shaking. "Are you all right?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the edge of her mask. The silence between them stretched, and then she removed it. Eli saw her face for the first time. She was not monstrous. She was not cursed. She was radiant. Her skin bore soft, glowing lines like the Almerian circuits, silver that shimmered with emotion. Her eyes were vast pools of light and sadness. Her features were sharp, beautiful, untouched by time yet weathered by memory. But what struck him most wasn't her face. It was the way she looked at him. Not with fear, not with apology, but with trust. "This is me," she said. Eli stepped closer, never breaking eye contact. "You don't have to hide again." Then suddenly the ground shook. Above them, explosions. The outer ruins collapsed inward. "They found us," Viola shouted. A ship had descended from the clouds, black, silent, shaped like a predator. Figures dropped from it. Not soldiers, not council enforcers, something worse. The Silent Order. Assassins with no faces, no names, only blades that shimmered in the dark. Eli pulled out his blaster. "Go, run! I'm not leaving you. You're the only one who can carry this truth." She looked torn, but she knew he was right. She turned and fled down the inner corridor as Eli held the entrance. Shots rang out. Explosions lit the walls. He fought like a man with nothing to lose until they overwhelmed him. One blade cut deep into his side. He fell, bleeding, breath shallow. The last thing he saw was Viola looking back. And then, everything went black. When he woke, the air was cold, and someone was holding his hand. Viola. Her mask was gone, and tears glowed softly on her face. "You stayed," he whispered. "You saved me," she answered. "Did you get the data?" She held up a glowing orb. "I got everything." And then she leaned down and whispered in his ear, "You were the first person I ever trusted, and now the galaxy will hear the truth." The galaxy's heartbeat. The stars above Kalar Prime blinked like watchers with no mouths, silent witnesses to a history rewritten in secret. From a quiet balcony overlooking the sleeping city below, Viola stood without her mask. Her face was exposed yet still cloaked in shadows. The glowing lines across her skin pulsed softly, almost in rhythm with the slow beeping of a medical unit behind her. Eli was lying on a recovery bed inside, his body broken but breathing. Her hand was on the glass between them, unmoving, as if she could will the warmth of her touch to reach him through the barrier. He had nearly died on Lyrae 9, and still, he hadn't let go. She had carried him out herself, dragged him through the collapsing ruins, hidden from drones, crossed poisoned sands with no food or rest. For 3 nights she had walked alone with him slumped across her back, hearing only his fading breath and the heavy silence of fate. The truth orb, containing the final memories of her people and the evidence of the council's crimes, never left her grip. That orb, small, quiet, glowing, was now on the table beside Eli's bed. "He is stable," said Soren, entering from the shadows. "But he needs time." Viola didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on Eli. His chest rose and fell. That was all she needed right now. "You know what must be done," Soren continued. "We can't wait any longer. The galaxy is on the edge. The council is tightening its grip. They've painted you as a traitor, and him as your brainwashed pet." Her voice was quiet, but it cut the room like glass. He is not my pet. He's the only one who saw me when the rest of the galaxy looked away. I know, Soren said gently. That's why he matters. She finally turned to him, her expression unreadable. We broadcast tonight, no delays. He nodded. The beacon is ready. Once it starts, every unfiltered channel, every rebel relay, every pirate frequency will see you. No edits, no distortion, just you and the truth. And what happens after? She asked. After they see my face? After they hear my voice? Soren shrugged. Maybe they hunt you harder. Maybe they listen. Maybe they rise. When the time came, Vialia stood alone in the center of the transmission room. No crown, no robes, no mask. Only truth. Around her, ancient Almerian projectors, word to life, casting her voice across worlds. The orb hovered beside her, a soft heartbeat of memory waiting to be released. She began to speak. Her voice was calm, but fierce. Every word carved through the silence like fire through ice. My name is Vialia, daughter of a forgotten people, heir to an erased empire. For years you were told I was cursed, dangerous, silent. They gave me a mask so you'd never see my tears. They told you I was a threat because I feel too much. As her words spread through the stars, citizens on 100 worlds looked up. Terminals buzzed, screens blinked. Holograms flared to life in busy markets, dusty mining colonies, noble halls, and refugee stations. But I am not the threat, Vialia continued. The threat is the lie. She raised her hand and the orb burst into light. The audience saw everything, the Almerians healing soldiers on both sides of ancient wars, council leaders rewriting records, her mother, forced to silence her own child with a ceremonial mask, and Eli again and again standing between Vialia and death. They told you humans could not understand us, that they were too violent, too proud, but one of them, one man, reached out his hand when no one else dared, and I trusted him. Across the galaxy, reactions were immediate and vast. On a human colony called Arden 5, a group of scientists who had long studied the Almerian myth stood in tears, realizing it was all true. On Miratari homeworlds, young nobles began to question the council's decree. Elders wept, warriors hesitated, and on the council's command ship, rage erupted. Cut. The signal, barked a high elder. We can't, cried a technician. It's being bounced through rebel satellites. We're too late. Back in Kalar Prime, Eli stirred for the first time in days. His eyes fluttered open. Light stung. Pain crawled through every part of him. But then he saw her. Vialia, without her mask, bathed in golden light. She was still speaking. He could barely hear her through the speaker, but the words made him smile. For too long, Vialia said, I let fear speak for me, but no more. If I must stand alone, so be it. But I will not stand silent. She paused, looked directly at the feed, and then said, My name is Vialia, and this is my face. When the transmission ended, there was no applause, only silence, followed by thunder. 1,000 ships moved across sectors. Uprisings ignited on council worlds. New leaders emerged from hiding. Fear shifted. For the first time in centuries, it began to shift away from the people and toward those who built their thrones on silence. The galaxy's heartbeat changed, and at its center stood a girl who once believed she had to hide, who now stood with her face uncovered, because someone took her hand and never let go. The hand that changed everything. The council struck back like a wounded beast. Within hours of Valia's transmission, galactic arrest warrants were issued. Her image, unmasked, defiant, flashed across every Imperial channel with the label terrorist. The signal was clear. She had shown the truth, so now she had to be silenced, but the people didn't stay silent. From the slave mines of Veltrax to the floating bazaars of Halion 3, whispers became shouts. Masked marchers walked the streets in her name. Some painted glowing lines across their faces in Almerian style. Others held up their hands in silent tribute, the symbol of connection, of trust. Her story spread faster than fear could chase it, and still, she did not hide. Valia stood on the balcony of a rebel safe house deep within the broken city of Kalar Prime. Beneath her, the streets boiled with energy. Ships soared between spires. Old factions were shifting. Former enemies were sending messages of unity. She had done it, but she was also now the most hunted being in the galaxy. Inside, Eli sat at the edge of his medical bed. His body was bandaged, his movement slow, but his mind was sharp, sharper than ever. When Valia entered, he looked up and smiled. "I saw your speech," he said softly. "You broke the galaxy in half." She sat beside him. "I only told the truth." "No," he said. "You showed them yourself. That's something no weapon, no fleet, no leader has done in centuries." A pause passed between them. Soft. Fragile. "Are you afraid?" he asked. She turned to him, her glowing eyes softer now. "Yes, but not of what's coming." "Then what?" "Of losing you." He said nothing, just reached out, and she took his hand. Like before. No fear, no mask, no barriers. They stayed like that until Soren burst in. "You need to see this," he said. "Now." In the center of the room, a wide hollow screen blinked on. A transmission was being broadcast from orbit, not from the Council, not from a loyalist world, but from the sovereign dreadnought, a warship lost during the Almerian Purge decades ago. On the screen stood a figure in full Council uniform. Behind him, chains. And within those chains, Valia's mother, alive, gasping, wounded. "Princess Valia," the man said coldly. "If you value the life of the former High Empress, you will surrender immediately. We know where you are. You have 1 hour." The screen blinked off. The room went cold. Valia didn't speak. Her face was stone. "They've had her all this time," Eli said. Valia nodded. "They erased her just like the Almerians. Only they didn't kill her. They used her." "They're trying to break you," Soren said. Valia stood. "They won't." She turned to Eli. "I have to go to her. Then I'm going with you." "No, you're still healing. I didn't follow you through hell to sit behind while you walk into it again." Their eyes locked. Finally, she nodded. The journey to the Sovereign Dreadnought was like diving into a storm. Their stolen ship, small and fast, weaved through patrol routes and plasma fields. Coded beacons allowed temporary passage, but once they entered the Dreadnought's atmosphere, all shields dropped. They were expected. They landed in silence. The hangar bay was dark. No soldiers, no weapons drawn. Just a single corridor lit in. Blut Ely walked beside Valia. She was unarmed. He carried a small pulse pistol, more symbolic than useful. "This is a trap," he whispered. "I know," she said. "Why walk into it?" "Because my mother deserves to see me with my face uncovered." They stepped into the throne chamber. It was nothing like the grand halls of Miratari royalty. This one was carved from cold metal and sharper lies. The man from the transmission stood waiting, his expression smug. "Princess Valia," he said, mocking her title. "Or should I say, heretic." "Where is she?" Valia asked. He smiled. "You'll see." He stepped aside. From the shadows, 2 soldiers brought her mother forward. Older now, thinner. But her eyes, so much like Valia's, still held fire. "Valia," she whispered. Valia ran to her, dropped to her knees, embraced her. The guards didn't move. The council leader didn't interrupt. He wanted this moment, wanted to dangle it like a final mercy. "Do you surrender?" he asked. Valia stood slowly, her mother still holding her hand. "No," she said. The man blinked. "What?" "You've already lost," she said. "Look around you. Your empire is shaking. Your soldiers are defecting. Your lies are bleeding out in the streets." He raised a hand. "Enough." But his words stopped as something echoed in the chamber. Footsteps. Hundreds of them. Doors opened on all sides. Rebel soldiers poured in, human, military, others. Valia's face had rallied more than just sympathy. It had summoned a new alliance, and at the head of them all, Soren. He held up the orb. "You made a mistake," he said to the council leader. "You gave her time." The council leader's face twisted in panic, but before he could give the order, one of his own guards turned on him. The military soldier raised a blaster and fired. The war ended in one shot and began again with the silence that followed. When the dust settled, the Empress was safe. The dreadnought was in rebel hands. Valia stood at the center of it all, not as a symbol, but as someone real, and next to her, a human who had never let go of her hand. She took off the mask and rewrote destiny. It began with silence. Not the silence of fear or defeat, but of awe. As the sovereign dreadnought drifted slowly above Kalar Prime, now no longer a warship but a banner of rebellion, the galaxy held its breath. The council had fallen. The chains that once bound entire systems to lies and history to ash had cracked open like brittle glass, and at the center of that fracture stood Valia. Not the masked princess, not the heir to some forgotten bloodline, but a woman who had chosen to trust, who had chosen to be seen. Word of the final confrontation spread faster than light. No propaganda could stop it now. Images of Valia and her mother walking freely through the dreadnought halls side by side, one regal, one glowing with Almerian lines, lit up every screen. There was no longer a debate. The mask was gone. She had become more than myth. She had become proof. In the days that followed, the galaxy didn't explode into war as many feared. It leaned into possibility. Small acts of unity sparked on both sides. Human and military citizens cleaned the same streets. Old council soldiers dropped their weapons and asked to serve under a new banner. Even the once silent worlds of the fringe began to speak again, and still Valia remained grounded. While others built her image into statues and songs, she walked quietly through the city's rebuilding zones. No entourage, no crown. She listened to the wounded, to the farmers, to children who painted stars on broken walls and called her the girl who speaks with light. But only Eli ever saw the side of her that still carried the weight. In the early hours before dawn, they would sit on the edge of the Sovereign's observation deck watching the curve of Kalar Prime below. He still bore scars from Lyrae 9. He walked with a limp now, though he never mentioned it, and she still trembled sometimes when she touched another's hand. Just a flicker, a shadow of the years spent hiding. But when she reached for his, the tremble disappeared. They sat in silence that morning, there, fingers entwined, watching light break across the world they had helped change. "They want me to lead," Valia said quietly. Eli looked at her. "Will you?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "I'm not a queen. I don't want thrones or power." "Then don't take the throne," he said. "Take the people." She turned to him, the early light catching the silver lines on her skin. "I don't want to be worshipped." "Then be followed," he whispered. "There's a difference." She smiled. Not the practiced smile of royalty, not the diplomatic one meant to calm crowds, a real one. "What about you?" she asked. "What will you do now that the war is over?" He shrugged. "I was a bodyguard. Now I'm just a guy who followed a princess into a broken galaxy and watched her put it back together." "That's not all you are," she said. And then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his. A gesture not of romance alone, but of Almerian connection. A sacred act. In that moment, she let him feel everything. Her fear, her strength, her childhood loneliness, her pain, and her hope. And he didn't pull away. He never had. In the weeks that followed, a new galactic accord was signed. Not by emperors or warlords, but by survivors. The Unity Concord bore the signatures of human rebels, military reformers, and dozens of fringe world leaders. At the center of the document was a glowing seal, Valia's handprint etched in light overlapping with Eli's, an image that would come to define a new era, Not conquest, not control, but trust. The final broadcast came not from a palace, but from a reclaimed school on a quiet moon. Velia stood before children of every race, her voice calm but powerful. For years I wore a mask to protect myself, but the truth is, the mask protected them. From me. From the truth. From connection. They were afraid of what would happen if we really saw each other, if we really felt. She reached out her hand not to the camera, but to a small alien child in the front row. The child hesitated, then took it. And as the image spread across the galaxy, millions of people did the same. They reached out to strangers, to neighbors, to those they once feared, and they remembered what it meant to trust. The galaxy did not become perfect. There were still battles to fight, still scars too deep for words. But something had shifted forever, because once, a masked princess trusted no one, until a human took her hand and never let go.